Hi, my name is Reed Silverne. The name of this show is Fed Pride. The reason it's called Fed Pride, is because I'm a federal worker and proud of it. I don't know how the sound ended up off, but it did. But it caught it within a few seconds. So forgive me. Basically, the way this show works is it's live to tape. Today, for me, it's Friday, the 15th of August. For you, it's probably Sunday, the 17th, or Tuesday, the 19th. However, if I may have a technical error, today you are going to see it, and I already have, in that when I came up, the sound was down, and I did figure it out within seconds. So anyway, today the show is going to be about the situation in Georgia, and I'm going to move over a little bit. And I'm going to make the screen a little larger, and we're going to focus in on what has become a war zone. Here's the country of Georgia. I'm going to focus in a little bit more. Here's Russia. And right over here is South Ossetia, comes down like this. And over here is Abkhazia, which is the other breakaway republic of Georgia. So last week it just happened that instead of talking about economics, which I've been talking about nonstop for who knows how else, I decided to talk again about the Second Cold War. And lucky I did, because I was talking about Russia, Russia being in a gigantic plain, the Russian people being feeling very, very vulnerable, constantly open to attack. I'm going to focus back in for a little bit and just show Russia and where it is. And basically, here's the here over here is the Federation of Russia, and of course the Soviet Union included these three Baltic republics, Belarus, the Ukraine with the Crimea, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and all these really large republics over here, which is Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Turkmenistan. So basically, the Soviet Union was gigantic and had about, I'd say the combined population today, it was a little less 20 years ago when the Soviet Union broke up in 1991. But the total population today is about 300 million. But the Russian Federation, even though it's still 7 million square miles, goes all the way from right across the Bering Strait from Alaska, all the way to the borders of Finland and the Baltic states and the Caucasus, which of course borders on Georgia as well. This is the Caucasus. It's a mountain range. The Russian Federation is basically an open plain, a lot of it permafrost, and the only thing that really splits it off is a very low mountain range over here, which is the Urals. And other than that, it's really open to Europe. The Teutonic Knights invaded in 1200. The Mongols invaded Russia and actually took it over around 1220. Poland has invaded it. Sweden, of all places, has invaded it. Of course, Napoleon, who is French, invaded Russia. Hitler, Germany invaded Russia. So lots of invasions from the West. And then the Ottoman Empire actually controlled this whole area in here. So I guess if it controls areas that are now Russia, I guess that might be construed as an invasion. And down here they have fought many wars with Persia, which is now Iran. And on top of that, this whole area over here, which they call the Russian Far East, Vladivostok is right about here, Sakhalin Island, and this Amur Basin over here, that had been under the control of China. So Russia's very, very open. And the Russian people throughout history have always felt that they need a buffer. They need a buffer, or else an enemy will get them. And then once they take the buffer, then they need another buffer to protect that buffer. Then they need another buffer to protect that buffer, and so on and so forth. By the time the Soviet Union, after World War II, basically the border with the West was, they had East Germany, Poland, Czech. Czech is now the Czech Republic here in Slovakia. Poland, parts of Austria, Hungary, and then the Yugoslavian states were semi-independent. They had Bulgaria and the Warsaw Pact, and Romania. Of course, Romania was somewhat independent too. Oh, the 15th Soviet Republic was Moldova. Now, while they were the Soviet Union and the champions of communism throughout the world, the Russians made a strategic mistake. What they did is they wanted more seats in the UN. So all of these Soviet socialist republics, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova, etc., 15 of them, they gave them seats in the UN and kind of forced the international community to recognize them as sovereign states, even though they were basically only regions for all intents and purposes, with regional governments of a very, very centralized communist Soviet Socialist Republic. So why was that a mistake? The reason it was a mistake because when the Soviet Union fell apart, the Berlin Wall fell in 1989. Between 1989, these countries over here fell away and refused to stay in the Warsaw Pact, which basically put it under the control of the communist empire. And these Soviet socialist republics were already recognized as independent states. There was really nothing the Russians could do under international law to say that they can't go their own way. There were some of them. The Russians put together what they call the CIS, the Commonwealth of Independent States. In America, at least the American government, called it the former Soviet Union, FSU. Basically, all of these countries got their independence. And the Russians have been very, very resentful ever since. They were very, very weak from about 1991, even the capital of the Soviet Union, Moscow itself, declared its independence from the Soviet Union, and it became the Russian Federated Republic. Now, there's other entities which are not on this map, which are even smaller than Soviet Socialist Republics, SSRs. So that while the Soviet Union was there, this is the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, Belarusian Soviet Socialist Republic, and so on and so forth. Not independent from the Soviet Union, but there was nothing they could do to prevent them from becoming independent. Some of them, the communist leaders of those countries, remained in power. To this day, Belarus, which is a satellite, I guess you might say, of Russia, they have a dictator named Lukashenko, and he's basically stuck with Russia. A guy named Niziov took over Kazakhstan, and he has been just very interesting dictator. He created really a cult of personality. I'm not sure whether he's still alive. I think that his son may have taken over for him. But basically, this area in here, all around this Baltic Sea, untold oil and natural gas wealth. The richest country being Azerbaijan over here. They've had oil and since basically the early 1900s. Kazakhstan has a tremendous amount of oil and natural gas. And of course, Russia itself along the Caspian has its own oil and natural gas. Now over here in Siberia, there's also tremendous especially natural gas fields in Siberia. But dotted throughout Russia are what they call ASSRs, autonomous Soviet Socialist Republics. They are within the Soviet Socialist Republics. So there's a whole set of these over here. The one that most people have heard about is Chechnya. Chechnya is a very small ethnic group of Turkish-speaking people who were basically ethnically cleansed during World War II in Stalin area. After Stalin, they came back, and they have a very small area here with about 1 million people. They have been fighting the Russians tooth and nail. Some of them became basically Al-Qaeda. They're Muslim radicals. And Russia fought 2 wars against these people. But the basis that Russia fought the wars against Chechnya was that because it was an autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic, they could not devolve into an independent state. And just about everybody, the international community, said this is an integral part of Russia. It's up to Russia or not whether they want to be autonomous, but they are not a separate country. Oddly enough, now I'm going to hopefully expand, going the wrong way, expand the world over here, and we're going to focus in on the war zone. Here's the Black Sea, and over here on my right-hand shoulder is Georgia, the country of Georgia. And Georgia has 2 autonomous Soviet Socialist republics that are now autonomous areas, and this one here is called Abkhazia. This one here is South Ossetia, and on the other side, the Russians have Dagestan, Ingushetia, Chechnya, and North Ossetia on the other side, and another one whose name I forgot. And there's about 5 or 6 autonomous Soviet Socialist republics all up and down the north part of the Caucasus on the other side. And now there's a very, very big mountain range. Let's see if I can focus in a little bit farther. See if I can find the spot. Sweet spot. And I'm having trouble doing that. All right. There's the other sweet spot. There we go. Okay, we're going to make it bigger. See these mountains over here? Those are 17,000 feet high. Actually, the highest mountain in the entire continent of Europe is in this range over here. It's called the Caucasus Range. It's even higher than the Alps, and very scenic from what I understand, although I've never been there. And over here is Abkhazia, and over here is Ossetia, or Ossetia. They've been pronouncing it lately. Basically, the bottom line is in 1989, while the Berlin Wall was falling down and so on and so forth, there was a demonstration in Georgia, and the capital of Georgia is over here in Tbilisi. And there was a demonstration in Tbilisi, and the Russians overreacted and shot down 20 people, wounded hundreds of people at this demonstration. That sparked off an independence movement in Georgia. In 1991, when all of the other SSRs were declaring their independence, Georgia declared its independence, and they had a guy named, let's see if I can find it, Gamash Khurdia. He was the first president. He ruled for about 3 or 4 months. Then there was he got overthrown. There was a moment of chaos. And during that moment of chaos, 2 regions that speak slightly different languages, Abkhazia over here, very, very strategic on the Black Sea. And right over here was a big Soviet naval base, which the Russians would have lost if the Georgians had got their independence. Then there's this other region of North Ossetia. The Ossetians are the medieval Alan people. Alan sounds a little like Iran. They speak a language similar to Iranian, and they are the cause of the problems of the last couple days, or last week or so. So basically, in 1991, wars started here and here. The Abkhazians got help from the Russians, and they kicked the heck out of the Georgians. There are about 500,000 people, or 500,000 to 600,000 people living in this area over here. 400,000 of which were Georgians, and all the ethnic Georgians were kicked out. There was a complete, total ethnic cleansing, and Russian troops came in to keep the peace in Abkhazia. Now, in South Ossetia, the total population is only about 70,000. Of the 70,000, there's about 20+ thousand Georgians, and there's another 50,000 Ossetians. Ossetians are a people who are known, and I have a map, I haven't been able to get it up, but I found a map of 1071 medieval times, and there is the country of Georgia is already there, and also there's a little mini kingdom for the Alans who took over the whole North Caucasus area for a few years, and then were overthrown and replaced by different Turkish tribes. Anyway, what's left of these people are about 200,000, 150,000 on the Russian side and in a autonomous area, and about 50,000 over here in Georgia. What has happened the last couple of weeks? Well, the Russians tell the tale, and to them it starts on Friday, August 7th, when out of nowhere the Georgians attacked the autonomous region of North Ossetia and killed 2,000, somewhere 1,600 to 2,000 locals, who all of a sudden were Russian citizens. Why were they Russian citizens? Because for the last 6 months, the Russians have been handing out passports to everybody who doesn't speak the language of Georgia. And then declaring these people, they annex the people as citizens and not yet, although they are, the area. Why is this so strategic? There is a tunnel underneath the Caucasus Mountains which links Georgia to Russia. And that is a very good way for the Russians to be able to get back and forth to the other side of the Caucasus Mountains. So that area is pretty strategic too. What really happened is August 1st, the militias of the South Ossetians who fight with Russian arms started attacking Georgians. But what we found out is that a month before, there was a cyber attack on all the websites for the nation of Georgia, especially the Georgian government, where the Georgian government websites were pulled down and replaced with pictures of the president of Georgia, Saakashvili, with pictures of Hitler and dictators from throughout history. So somebody had taken it down. They think it's a group called RBS, Russian Business Systems. But what that is a gang of cyber thieves who usually are stealing people's identities. And they did what they called a DDoS, which is a distributed distributive denial of service, DDoS attack. So they had taken over computers through spyware and who knows how else throughout the world, even in the United States, and had these computers would override the websites of this country, and basically there's just so many hits coming on that it overrides the servers and runs them down. So it's one of the few cases where there's been a cyber attack, and then that was a month ago, and then they had one starting with the battle. So what happened was the Georgian troops who were training, actually we were training them, there's a few American trainers over here, and the Georgian troops didn't show up for training one day, and that's because they had been mobilized because these Ossetian militias were attacking the ethnic Georgians in the area. So there was a shelling, that is true, and then Saturday, all of a sudden, through this tunnel, the Russians were able to mobilize between 1,000 and 1,200 tanks and 30,000 troops without any foreknowledge of the situation whatsoever. And of course, the troops came in through here, which is Abkhazia, where the Russians have peacekeepers, and they mostly came in through Saakashvili, which is the capital of that little South Ossetian area, and they didn't stop there. They ended up coming in and taking the port of Poti, where the Georgians have their oil terminal. Another little town that where the roads come together from Abkhazia and from Tbilisi, and then Gori, which is on the other side, which is the birthplace of Stalin, who actually is his original name was Joseph Tsungashvili. The Georgians, they have a declined language, so everybody who's Georgian, their last name goes with ends with usually V-I-L-I, or at least L-I, Lee. So that was the beginning of it. So what happened is the Russians came in, and all of a sudden there were 1,000 tanks coming into Georgia. Oddly enough, about a month before this whole thing started, Condoleezza Rice had talked with the president of Georgia, Saakashvili, and said, whatever you do, don't respond to provocations in South Ossetia. So obviously we had an idea that something was brewing over here. But he did. He fell for it. Next thing you know, the Russians are saying, oh my God, there's been a genocide. 1,600 to 2,000 civilians have been killed. That is proving to be false because there's a Human Rights Watch, which is one of these human rights organizations. For some reason, they were in the Caucasus region anyway. And they actually went up to Saakashvili just as the whole thing was happening. They went into the morgues. There were only 44 bodies from the battle. And that's both halves of the battle. That's the battle when the Georgians went in on Friday, and the battle when the Russians came charging in on Saturday and Sunday. So they asked the Russians and the South Ossetians, well, where's the other 1,550 to 1,950 bodies? Where is this, evidence of this horrible massacre that the Georgian army is supposed to have produced or done? And they said, oh, the people ran out of their basements while they were being bombed and buried all the bodies in their backyards. So I don't believe that for a second. However, I've been reading a lot of these talkbacks and things like that on English newspapers and European newspapers. And boy, there are a lot of people that believe that somehow or other 1,600 to 2,000 civilians were slaughtered, and yet only 44 bodies appeared. However, the Russians actually bombed Gori, which is right about here, Crossroads area, with cluster bombs, and killed 11 people, and that was also verified by this Human Rights Watch. Now, why is Georgia so important? Why would the Russians do this? And I'm just going to mention, because I don't have time for it, that Poland, which was dithering about the anti-missile missiles, the Star Wars missiles that were going to go in there, they have signed an agreement on the basis that we would also put in Patriot 3s, which are missiles that would come from Russia, mid-range missiles. Well, Azerbaijan over here, and especially this area over here, has 2 million barrels a day of oil production. 1 million barrels a day of which come over here to Tbilisi, and then down over here, and then through Turkey. Well, having a little trouble seeing where it is. And then coming in over here at Ceyhan. So there's a giant oil pipeline that goes right through, well, what did you think? Georgia, and doesn't go through Russia. That is the reason that there's so much attention on this. That's the reasons why the Russians want it back. My name is Reed Silver, and the name of the show is Fed Pride. The reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal worker, proud of